What if I told you that the atomic theory, the idea that everything is made of tiny invisible particles, wasn't discovered in the modern age of science, but over 2,000 years ago by a man with no microscope, no lab, and no scientific tools? Imagine a philosopher in ancient Greece sitting under the sun, breaking a shell again and again, asking, what happens if I keep dividing this forever? Before Einstein, before Newton, before chemistry even had a name, one man saw the invisible. But his name was nearly erased from history. Who was Democritus, the forgotten genius who saw the building blocks of the universe with only his mind? To understand how groundbreaking Democritus' ideas were, we have to go back to ancient Greece, around 400 BCE, a time when people believed the world was made of the four elements: earth, water, air, and fire. Science wasn't science yet. Philosophy and natural thinking were the tools of knowledge. Democritus was born in Abdera, a Greek city in Thrace. He was curious, radical, and always asking questions. Unlike others who accepted myths and gods as explanations, Democritus dared to ask, what is matter really made of? His answer: atoms, a word he coined from the Greek atomos, meaning indivisible. He believed that everything, your body, water, air, even thoughts, was made up of tiny, eternal, indivisible particles moving in a void. Today, we call this atomic theory. But for over 2,000 years, his idea was rejected, ignored, and even ridiculed. So how did Democritus figure it all out, without even seeing an atom? Democritus didn't have a lab. He had logic. He began with a simple question: if you keep cutting something, like a rock or a piece of cheese, how many times can you divide it? At some point, he thought, you'll reach a particle so small that it can't be divided any further. That's the atom, the uncuttable. This wasn't just guesswork. It was a mental model built on reasoning, not superstition. He imagined atoms as different in shape and size, combining in infinite ways to form all matter, just like letters form words. Nothing exists except atoms and empty space, everything else is opinion. Democritus wasn't just a stay-at-home philosopher. He traveled extensively, to Egypt, Persia, and even India, seeking knowledge. He studied geometry with Egyptian priests and astronomy in Babylon. Some accounts suggest he spent over 5 years in Egypt. This mix of cultures helped him develop a universal theory of nature that stood apart from Greek mythological thinking. He rejected the idea that the world was made by gods. Instead, he believed in natural laws, cause and effect, and a mechanical universe governed by atomic interactions, a radical idea in a deeply religious world. Democritus described atoms as eternal, invisible, and in constant motion, colliding and combining in the void. This motion, he said, is what causes change, from the formation of stars to the growth of plants. In fact, he proposed that taste and color arise from the shapes and arrangements of atoms. Smooth atoms might feel sweet, sharp ones might taste bitter. He even believed that the soul was made of particularly fine atoms, a striking parallel to the modern idea that thoughts come from neural and chemical activity. This was pure genius, centuries before science could prove any of it. If Democritus was so right, why did history forget him? Simple: Plato and Aristotle. Plato hated the idea of atoms. He believed in ideal forms, not invisible particles. Aristotle, the most influential thinker of the time, dismissed atomism entirely. Instead, he supported the four-element theory. And because the Church later adopted Aristotle's views, Democritus' ideas were suppressed for nearly 2,000 years. His writings, over 70 books, were mostly lost. Only fragments survive today. It wasn't until the 17th century, with thinkers like Galileo, Boyle, and Newton, that atomism resurfaced. And in the 19th century, John Dalton finally gave scientific backing to atomic theory, unknowingly proving Democritus right after 2 millennia. Today, atomic theory is the bedrock of chemistry, physics, and biology. From the periodic table to quantum mechanics, everything starts with atoms. Einstein's work on Brownian motion in 1905 finally offered concrete evidence of atoms. In 1981, scientists used a scanning tunneling microscope to see atoms for the first time. Democritus would have been thrilled, not just because he was right, but because modern science finally caught up with his vision. But here's the twist, Democritus wasn't entirely right. We now know atoms can be divided into protons, neutrons, and electrons. And even those contain quarks and leptons. His model also couldn't explain chemical reactions or energy levels. Yet the core idea, that matter is made of tiny moving particles, is still true. Some even argue that Democritus' atoms were more philosophical than scientific. So was he a scientist, or just a very lucky thinker? The answer may lie not in precision, but in imagination. He dared to propose a universe not made by gods, but by logic. Democritus imagined the invisible, and changed everything. He had no tools, no experiments, no funding. Just a brain and a bold question: what is the world really made of? Today, every chemical reaction, every digital chip, every cell in your body, operates on atomic principles he first described over 2,000 years ago. His story reminds us that sometimes, the biggest discoveries begin not in a lab, but in the human mind. So the next time you hold a grain of sand or drink a glass of water, remember, inside those tiny forms lie the ancient dance of atoms, first imagined by a man whose ideas were almost forgotten. And maybe ask yourself, what invisible truth are we ignoring today, just because we can't see it yet?